Hello, and we're back. So next up, I have a video to show you from Tchan of NSW Health. The title of the video is it's a demo of using xAPI and simple storyline triggers to evaluate learning transfer under LTEM. So let me go ahead and load the video up, and we'll get started.
Hi, my name is Nick and I'm an ID from Australia. My job is to create systems training for electronic medical records, or EMR, that is used in hospitals. My co-worker for this project was Mary, an ID from Tennessee. She's founded a company which creates instructor-led and online courses that make a positive business impact. Our aim with this project wasn't to learn how to code xAPI statements from scratch. We wanted to make this project simple so that any ID with reasonable experience in Storyline could concentrate on adding value through their ID skills. Our other interest is using Will Thalheimer's Learning Transfer Evaluation Model, or LTEM, with xAPI to help evaluate learning. Our final project was creating a branching scenario within Storyline that enabled us to evaluate whether the learner knew what to do, which is Tier 4 under LTEM, knowledge, made the right decisions in undertaking a task, which is Tier 5, decision making, and could perform a task to the required level of competence. These middle tiers of the LTEM methodology are specifically designed to measure whether learning has occurred in realistic simulations of whatever it is that we want the learners to learn. After quite a few weeks of figuring out how xAPI can be used with simple storyline triggers, we settled upon an existing storyline branching scenario, and this is what I'm going to go through today. The storyline module I'm displaying in this video was a branching scenario. The key knowledge arising from this scenario was that the clinician had to look at different information screens to get a full picture of what medications a patient had taken and when. The real-life problem the training was trying to solve was that clinicians were forgetting to look at certain screens and getting the wrong information about when medications had been taken, when they'd been stopped, and so on. At each step of the branching scenario, users were given the option of looking at the information screens in the same way as they would as if they were using the real-life system. My take is that simply looking at the screens represented the successful transfer of knowledge. The learners would then make decisions. It's possible to look at the screens and still make the wrong decision about medications. Choosing the right option at each stage of the branching scenario represented the decision-making tier in LTEM. If the training had done its job at this point, then there will be a successful transfer of decision-making skills. Finally, each pathway in the branching scenario comes to a different end. If they didn't look at the screens and didn't make the right decisions, then there were severe consequences for both the patient and those around him. If the clinician makes the right decisions all along the way, then they are competent in their task of ordering the appropriate medications during the patient's hospital stay and upon discharge. Once again, if the training has done the job, then there was successful transfer of task competence. In the storyline file, I used the new storyline ability to create xAPI statements. For those people within my organisation, an xAPI statement returns information on the actor, the verb, and the object. The actor is the person undertaking the e-learning. The verb is one of 10 verbs the storyline allows you to pick from, and the object is something on the screen in storyline. This will make more sense once we look at a specific example. On this page, I created layers to represent each screen the clinician had to look at. These layers are called the MAR summary, and the medication list. For example, let's say the clinician looks at the MAR. This will take us to the MAR layer. When the timeline starts on this layer, we set a trigger to send an xAPI statement. The actor is the learner. The verb could be one of several verbs, but since the learning is about viewing the different screens and getting information from them, I've chosen the verb viewed. We want to know that the actor, i.e. the learner, viewed the image of the MAR. The object that they viewed is a screenshot of the MAR at a certain date and time, so I've named the image very carefully. For the knowledge tier, I've exclusively used the verb viewed, so when it comes to looking through the xAPI statements, I know how the clinicians are doing in the knowledge tier. Now it comes to the different decisions the clinician has to make in the branching scenario. For For each answer choice, I've triggered an xAPI statement that says the user answered the object. Once again, I've named each object very carefully to say that they were decision competent or decision incompetent. For the decision making tier, therefore, I've exclusively used the verb answered. Finally, the decisions lead to various outcomes in the e-learning. For example, one consequence of several wrong decisions along the way is that the patient has a stroke because they can't inject their medication. Another consequence is that his grandson must go to hospital after swallowing leftover painkillers. When the learner reached each of the failed endings, I used the verb failed. There's only one good ending, where I use the verb satisfied. For the task competence tier, the object is the slide name. I start off the name with failed task competence, and then I gave detail about why they failed by stating the incorrect drugs they ordered as home medications. In this case, enoxaparin and oxycodone. For the success slide, I named it task competent, so that the statement is that the learner satisfied task competence fully competent. Once I'd finished the storyline file, I uploaded it to a learning management system, which in this case was SCORM Cloud. I also used an almost free offer from LRS, Grassblade, to have some decent reporting. For those who haven't used Storyline and xAPI before, I had to publish firstly to my LMS and then an external learning record store. In SCORM Cloud they have an LRS, so I had to get what was known as the LRS endpoint, key and secret from Grassblade LRS to put it into the publication settings. This all will vary according to the LMS/LRS, so I won't go into too much detail. I unleashed the e-learning on my poor learners via a SCORM Cloud link. All my learners were people who had no prior training and no idea what to do, but there was the opportunity to go back and make different decisions, so I had a wide range of statements to look at. Using the filters in Grassblade LRS, we have a rich picture of how my learners actually performed in the simulation. We could make judgments on whether they'd managed to transfer knowledge from the statements that said they'd viewed the different screens. We'd know whether they can make the right decisions in the simulation, and of course we know whether they can do the task successfully in a simulated environment. If this was a real-world xAPI project, I'd then hopefully be able to use that data to see whether what we saw in terms of performance in the simulation was reflected in the real world. Anyway, that's our presentation. I hope it taught you a little about how xAPI can be used in Storyline. Feel free to email me on the address on the screen if you have any further questions, and I hope this helped someone somewhere.
Awesome.
Hey there. So this was really cool. And what I love about this demo, and Nick couldn't be here because Nick is in New Zealand or Australia or somewhere, I can't remember, but somewhere where it's ungodly early in the morning right now on a Saturday morning. So he sent in this video and I appreciate him doing that. What I love is that in a mixture of sessions, some of them are super, super geeky, and you know, lots of colons and brackets and code. Nick's and his team's work really show how there are geek-free tools to using xAPI. You can get in and get doing it without having to worry about a whole lot of code. Our next scheduled session was supposed to be a team called Team More Than SCORM, and they were also going to be using or demoing some of their work using Articulate Storyline, which is one of several authoring tools that support xAPI. So Mary Elizabeth is not here yet, but I wondered if this group wanted to have a Q&A session or a chat session or a brainstorming session for the rest of our time. If you don't want to do that, you're more than welcome to take a break and come back at the bottom of the hour for our next two sessions in the party. And our next two sessions then have to deal with, we've got one that is, not the bottom of the hour, almost in 45 minutes after the hour, where we've got one session on hype, the authoring with xAPI, which is pretty cool. And then another one on xAPI and data privacy. So lots going on, but quick question for those of you who are in the room, if you could just answer in the chat, do you want to do some Q&A or some discussion about some of the things that you're seeing here and learning this time? It's entirely possible that people opened the room and then stepped away. All right. So not seeing a whole lot of energy around a Q&A session or a brainstorming session. Liz, why don't we bring this one to a temporary close, but stay available in case Mary Elizabeth does join us.
Okay, sounds great.
Cool.
Okay, see everyone soon.